Let's figure it out.
Pops and the Rican.
Pops and the Rican.
Look at this.
Pops and the Rican.
The Pops and the Rican.
What's the Pops and the Rican?
Look at the top of his head. Look at his head.
Pops and the Rican.
Pops and the Rican.
Oh, I guess I'm supposed to be turning that off, aren't I? No, well, look. It's Pops and the Rican show, and I'm Pops, and
I'm not Rican.
Somebody left the door unlocked at the club, and
They let everybody in here.
so anyway, let me explain real quick. Mostly because when I watch this later, I'm gonna have to figure out why was that not the Rican, and because I won't remember until I tell myself that. So anyway, yeah. So here we are. This weekend, we have some fantastic fun going on here at Gutty's Comedy Club. We've got Improv Aesthetics in for last night's show, and then again for tonight's show. And this guy right over here, he came in all the way from the Chicago area. I'm pretty sure it was court ordered, and he came down because he was wanting to be one of our special guests for one of our improv shows. So he came in. He's jumped on the stage with our guys because this guy not only is he a professional wrestler, maybe not anymore, and I don't know how professional he was in the first. Well, he and his sister used to wrestle a lot, and that's pretty much why his sister isn't here anymore.
She's in Florida.
Well, you get crushed by, and then you're like, okay, I'm moving, and that's how that goes. So anyway, no, he does some improv stuff with a group up in the Chicago area, and we actually had them here at Gutty's Comedy Club about 3 or 4 days ago. It was in the past. That's all I remember. I've slept twice since then, so I don't remember exactly when it was, but it's been a while. And so we became friends with Dave and said, hey, if you're bored and you just want to move here, and so far his wife won't let him move. That, and I'm pretty sure the judge he has to go and report once in a while. I'm just making that up. I just, for everybody everybody's like, what? I didn't know Dave had been in prison. All the time, people, all the time. Yeah. I mean, where do you think Joliet started?
Right. Exactly.
So anyway, but yeah, we've been having a great weekend here, and so I wanted to take some time to visit with Dave a little bit about how he got into the game of comedy and how he got into doing improv and all of that. Before I do that, I want to make sure and mention to you that we do have some cool things going on. And we want to make sure and invite you to become part of the Gutty's community, because if you will send a text, and here's what I'll tell you: send a text improv to 317-597-6856. You can join the Gutty's community, and when you do, you will be the first people to know about any upcoming shows when we sign in a new comic that's going to be coming in. Before we even put it up on the website, before we let everybody else know, the community, the Gutty's community, finds out first. And that gives you an opportunity to jump in, buy your tickets right away before anybody else. And the cool thing that we have going on here, and I give credit to where the credit is due, Steve, the Rican, has done an amazing job of putting together the technology and everything to make it as easy as possible for people to join us. And so you can actually, when you get the text, you can use the text to pull up information about the event. You can order your tickets right from your phone. It's pretty simple. And part of the reason he made it that simple was he works with me, and he's always saying, hey, I made it idiot proof. I've put him to the test, and if I can do it, it's idiot proof. So anyway, like I say, if you haven't already joined the Gutty's community, then just send a text, improv, just improv. Send that to 317-597-6856, and you'll join the Gutty's community. And if you haven't already done so, download the Gutty's Comedy Club app, because that's another great place for you to keep up on all the information about upcoming shows and who's coming. And if you are on the road sometime and you're like, hey, I can't get to Gutty's Comedy Club, but I want to watch a show, guess what? You pull up your app. You can see us live. Every show that we do, we go live. You can actually get on and watch it on your phone. And if you're home, you can use your computer and get on your smartphone or your smart TV and watch it in the big screen on your couch. And then it's like, just, it's like being here, only if you brought your couch here, people would look weird at you. I probably would say, get off my couch, and then I'd have a new couch. So if you want to do that, unless you got a real raggedy old couch like I do, then don't bring it here. I already have one of those. So anyway,
many a night on it.
Yeah, it's all the time. And it fits really nice in the garage. That's the cool thing. So anyway, LeBrandon says that's Leb.
Yeah.
I just in case you didn't know, that's Leb.
Yeah.
From
Austin and Leb Presents.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say Leb and somebody else, but I couldn't remember. So you helped me out. So I appreciate that. Yeah. So that's he was like, I'm just gonna say, hey, what's up, buddy? That's I was trying to. I don't know. I'm not very good at being Leb because let's be honest. I've only talked to him on the phone.
Yeah.
So
he's not very good at being Leb either.
Well, that's nice because that way when he comes here, because they do some improv and
sketch.
Yeah, he can pretend to be Lev then when he's here.
Yeah,
that'll work.
And
so,
maybe it's our fault because I believe they were scheduled to be here in March, and then everything shut down, which was like just a few weeks after my team had been here. So it's like maybe it was our fault that everything shut down. And
I'm pretty sure you didn't cause the Rona.
I don't know.
If you did, please don't do anything to him right now. If he caused the Rona, don't do anything to him right now. He'll be driving back to the Chicago area in the morning, Interstate 65, going north out of Indianapolis, driving a dark blue Honda Accord, license plate. No, I'm just kidding. I can't see it from here. And if you actually do drive a blue Accord, then I'm sorry. I didn't mean to give your car away. I was just making something up.
I thought you actually knew. I drive a Honda Fit, and I barely do.
Well, that's got to be impressive because let's be honest, you're a man of size.
Yes.
So anywho,
I'm kind of like the ribs on the opening credits of Flintstones. When I get in the car, it ends up on two wheels.
I can see that. Yeah. So, Dave, first of all, let's roll back just a day or two, and let's talk a little bit about how you got involved in the world of comedy. And I don't know if you got into comedy doing improv or if you got it. I know we talked a little bit about your wrestling days, and I don't know if that's how you got into comedy or what was it that brought you into the world of comedy. And then the follow up to that is, what was the transition that brought you into improv comedy?
Sure. For me, my story is that I was always somebody that loved entertaining people. I was the class clown. I loved, like my parents, I loved to give them opportunities to laugh and their friends. And I always found opportunities. Even at age 2, one of my earliest memories and one of the oldest photos that I used to have was of me at 2 years old doing my own bodybuilding competition at the city pool in Lamont, Illinois. because there was an actual bodybuilding competition going on at the same time at the pool. But I couldn't let those people, the professionals, steal my thunder. So Mom and Dad had an old Polaroid picture of me with my little 2-year-old root beer belly and my little 2-year-old muscles. Even before that, when I was 1 year old, or 1 year, when I was one, I was at a barbecue and I poured
1 years.
1 year's public school education. I'm sorry.
See, all this time I thought Chicago was in Illinois, not Kentucky. Wow.
I did go to college in Kentucky for
Oh, that
years.
explains a lot then. Okay, go ahead. Go back. I'm sorry. Continue on.
So when I was 12 months old, I was at a barbecue with my family, and I just thought it'd be funny to dump a Pepsi on my dad's head. And he actually never got over it, unfortunately, but it was hilarious for everybody there. So I've always loved to give people an opportunity to laugh and have fun with people. And the reason why it stuck so hard was that it was my one thing that I was comfortable with, that I was able to provide, that was a benefit, because for many years, and it's not an unusual story, but for me, it's my story, is that I battled with depression for a long time, for probably almost 20 years. And comedy was my go-to to, number one, hide how I felt. Number two, make sure other people didn't feel the same way I felt. And number three, to just justify not taking that last final step, because I really wrestled with the idea of pulling the plug permanently. And so comedy was the one thing that I could do to justify living that next day. And how I got into improv, well, a lot of improvisers, they've seen the show Whose Line Is It Anyway? And they think, oh, wow, that looks fun. I can do that. And I kind of thought the same thing. And so when I lived up in Chicago in 2008, 2009, took a couple classes at Second City. They asked me not to come back. And
We asked you not to come back, and look, here you are.
I'm like a rash. I kind of grow on you. Okay. That was fine. Yeah.
Andy's just as annoying.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. So Second City, how you say you took a few classes there? Like, were those just like one-day workshops, or were those some of their more entrenched, in-depth classes that they have? What route did you take with Second City? I
took the two basic levels, level A and B, and then it was after I finished B that I ended up moving back to Virginia. And in the meantime, I had gotten into pro wrestling, which if any pro wrestlers are watching this, I'm sorry, I'm going to pull the curtain back just a little bit. It's scripted, but basically wrestling is improv theater in the round. You've got an audience around all four sides. You're telling a story. You're creating a scene based on your character and their character, and you're also feeding off the audience. So if you're in a match that's going horrible, just like an improv, if you're in a scene that's going horrible, you edit, you get out, and you try not to ruin the whole show. But if you have a good scene, you'll let it stretch out a little bit and keep the crowd into it. So nowadays I wear clothing that's a lot looser fitting, and most of my castmates know that it's okay if I'm picking up a chair.
Well, sort of. Anyway.
That was one time, Dennis. I promise you, it won't happen again.
I know I'm 6 more years of therapy, and I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. So when you got in then to doing some improv, how was it? You kind of like, I'm doing this wrestling thing, but now I've got all this mind. I took these classes. I should probably do something with it, And you said something about using some improv as a wrestler, but when was it that you said, okay, maybe I should get back to actually using the skill that I took some classes for, and I kind of enjoy? How did you get back to doing something like that? And was well-versed something you started, or was that something you basically found out about and then just took over it? Because a man of your size with wrestling abilities, you could take over something, not Gutty's, because, well, we have guns.
And Hoss.
I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, how did you get back to say, okay, I'm going to go from wrestling back to doing some improv stuff then?
Sure. I was here in Chicago or not here because we're in Indianapolis. I was in Chicago, took the classes, and then my dad got really sick, so I moved back home to Virginia to kind of help Mom in his final days. And while I was down there, I got back into wrestling, but it wasn't home. And I was still battling with depression at that point. And it wasn't until 2012 ended into 2013 that I finally let the Lord get a hold of my heart, and I rededicated my life to Jesus Christ. And as a part of that, He showed me that as wonderful as the people are in West Virginia, that just wasn't my home. And so I packed everything I owned and ended up moving back into the Chicagoland area. Started completely over my sister's couch, but I knew that doing comedy and doing performing, like acting, whatever, that was my calling, and that God was going to use that. And about 3 months into having moved up here, I met a guy through Craigslist. He was looking for a producer for a Christian movie he wanted to do. But I was like, hey, I can't produce anything. I'm not really good at much of anything, but I do want to connect with other Christians. What do you think? About a month later, he wrote back, and we started an improv comedy team that was designed specifically to be performed by Christians so that we could guarantee that the quality and the content is always going to be accessible for people. Because a lot of improv sometimes goes for the low-hanging fruit, and sometimes it's just not, you don't want to bring your kids. Improv aesthetics is a great example of what can happen when you focus on doing clean comedy, because we had kids here last night, and it was awesome. And
yeah, and I'll just say this, you talked about wrestling with God.
yes,
That's not a wrestling match you're going to win.
no. Fortunately, he didn't go after my hip like he did Jacob. But I got some back and knee pain, so he's definitely won that battle. But I finally tapped out in early 2013, and I was like, all right, God, you win, I'm in. And he brought me up to the Chicagoland area. We started the Improv, and we thought, and here's the thing: even though we were Christian, we still had an ego. We're like, oh, we're going to corner the market. Nobody else is doing clean Christian improv, and so we came up with a name that we found out about a month in that somebody was already using.
What?
And we sent them an email like, hey, guess what? We're Christian too. We're going to use your name. I hope that's okay. They wrote back, no, we've been building our brand for 10 years. You're not going to take it. So we're like, oh, well, take your passive aggressiveness somewhere else.
Well, I can understand that. I mean, well, that's what you get for trying to use the name Whose Line Is It? That was where you went wrong.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
and what's really cool, because we were Christians, we eventually reconciled, and he's one of my best friends. His name's Brad Newton. He's in Texas, and he had started Improv, which we thought was a really cool name, which it was. And now he's a part of the Fish Sticks Nation. He's in Dallas, and Fish Sticks is all over the country. But we're really good friends. And so Ryan McChesney, who ended up being the best man at my wedding, the wingman on my first date with my now wife. So he's been there for all the ups and downs. He and I started the team, and our first actual live show was in November of 2013. It was a fundraiser for a couple of politicians in the area, and we've been doing church events, community events, and things like that ever since. And so the whole idea was God was redeeming all that lost time that I used comedy as a way to hide myself. He's now using it as a way for me to reveal who he is by just sharing the light and the joy of laughter.
So let me switch gears just a little bit with you here, because I know you have you've kind of thrown your hat in the ring, so to speak, in terms of trying to do some stand up. Where do you see the connecting points with stand up comedy and improv comedy? And where do you see that they run parallel, but they may not be quite conjoined at the hip?
So the similarities is the vulnerability factor. Especially for me, I don't have a lot of improv or stand-up experience. I did the open mic, the program open mic Thursday nights here at Gutty's. Check it out, either to watch or participate. We got a lot of great guys coming through and gals. But I tried it out, and the connecting points is the vulnerability, because when you're doing improv, the vulnerability is different because there's no safety net. There's no script. There's no, okay, I know that if this happens and goes this way, I can respond this way. Where stand up, you're vulnerable because you've written this, you're bearing your soul and your creation. It's like, here, please like it. And so being up there, being vulnerable is one of the biggest connecting things. Mm-hmm. And also in both, whether you're doing improv, stand up, or any kind of live theater, you're not the boss. It's the audience that's the boss. You've got to let them appreciate it in the way that they're going to. Some audiences, they respond silently and they just enjoy it, and then they'll give you the standing O at the end. Some are going to be raucous and loud. Some are going to be very controlled. But it's up to them. They're the paying customer. They're the one that are going to tell you whether or not you need to keep doing this or what you need to improve. So in both, allowing the audience to be the boss that they are, because they're the ones that pay the bills.
Yeah. It's one of the things when I'm teaching, and I teach comedy college, which is a stand-up comedy class here at Gutty's, and then Improv U, which is another class that I teach here at Gutty's. Both of them, I start out with the same basic foundational piece. Mm-hmm. And it's this, that if you're trying to get laughs, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Because
it's not about getting laughter. It's about us giving an audience the opportunity to laugh.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, everything that we do needs to be for the audience.
Right.
The writing that we do needs to be with an audience in mind. The prep work that you do running games and getting comfortable doing games so that in the moment you can write something and be in the present doing improv, it's all for the audience. And so, it's one of those things where we've been blessed with the ability and the freedom to share the laughable moments with an audience. Mm-hmm. But it's not for us. It's not, so many times I hear it after an improv show, or I'll hear it after a stand-up show. Oh man, I got some great laughs. And every time I hear it, I just cringe, because it's not about you. It's about the audience. And if you're doing it right, you should be giving away every laughter moment you can. Now, in the process, you will enjoy the laughter because you're there with them. But ultimately, the goal isn't to come home with a coffer full of laughs that I picked up all these laughs. I got this big basket full. No, it's about how much can I give to an audience so they can laugh as often and as hard as possible.
Exactly. And there's a very subtle and hidden benefit to that is, if I go out there with the idea I'm giving the audience a chance to laugh and they don't, and it bombs because I'm giving it to them and then they didn't receive it, the weight of the failure or the perceived failure is not on me. But if my focus is like, I've got to get these laughs and I don't, suddenly now I'm bringing this like condemnation on myself, like, oh man. And maybe the audience loved it. They weren't a vocal audience. And that happens, that you'll have an audience that's just not vocal. Like the time that we performed for the Amish people, they didn't laugh at all, but they tipped their hat as we left the stage.
Well, that's better than if they were honking their horns, because they don't have cars.
Right. And during the improv show, there was no way that they could pull lights either.
Well, yeah. So I will say this. You mentioned the fact that when you give everything away to an audience, if they aren't laughing, that's pretty much on them for not finding the funny. And I agree with the basic premise of that. But at the same time, we have a responsibility that when we've been given this privilege, the privilege of the platform is that we have the responsibility then to bring the best of the best of our opportunities for people to laugh.
Right.
So if you get up and you give them subpar performance of improv or a subpar performance of stand up, and they're like,
Oh yeah.
you really didn't give them many opportunities to laugh. You can't blame them for that.
Right,
So
right.
you got to bring your A game. You got to step in and really bring your best, so that when you do give them something, you're giving them that valuable gift that you have the privilege of sharing.
Exactly.
And I think that's ultimately, that's to me is I say this quite often. The producers and writers for Monsters Inc. They had that concept down, that laughter is so powerful. And as comedians, whether it's improv comedy, stand-up comedy, we've been allowed the privilege of dispensing this most powerful thing in the universe.
Exactly.
Is just, let's give away laughter. And to me, that's when you realize I have the privilege of doing it, it makes me work harder to make sure I'm presenting my best with every opportunity that I'm going to give to people to laugh. I want them to, not only do I want them to have the opportunity, but I want them to have the opportunity and receive some of the best that I could possibly bring to them.
Exactly.
So
exactly. And the thing is that people come to a comedy show for a variety of reasons, but at the root of it, they want the distraction from the world. Whether they've had a great week or a horrible week, a great decade or a terrible decade, when they're in your presence and you have that opportunity to give them that chance to laugh, it's a very healing thing. And I've talked about my faith, and God gave us laughter as a gift to bring healing, to bring people together. And that's what I love about being able to take all the pain and the struggle from my depression and now redeem it as a way to bless people, bring people together, and use comedy as a healing mechanism. Because when you are in a room with a bunch of people that you don't know and you start to laugh, you're no longer alone, because there's a connection that happens. And so I really love the opportunity. And during this whole 2020 year, it's we've had so many months where we haven't had that ability to connect and be in the room. And so that's why I'm so thankful for places like Gutty's that have found ways and have trusted and been able to keep open and have allowed me to come and sneak on stage and try to do what it is that I feel like I'm called to do, and try to be a part of the solution to the world's problems. And that's laughing and bringing people together, because when you laugh, suddenly the world doesn't feel as heavy.
Yeah. And ultimately, you'll hear it said all the time, whether you're in church or not, people still say it. Laughter is great medicine.
Yes.
Right. Especially if everybody else is dispensing opioids. Laughter is so much better than that, and cheaper.
Less jail time.
And quite honestly, laughter is pretty much the only medicine I can afford on my insurance plan right now.
Right. Well, the interesting thing that Steve shared on his, I think it was just a private page, is that the location that Gutty's is in right now used to be a pharmacy. So this place is still giving out great medicine. It may be a little bit addictive, but it's never going to hurt you. So really would, anybody that's in the Midwest, it's worth the drive. Come on down. You can come on down tonight, coming down next weekend. Next weekend's Jeff Shaw, right?
No.
Oh, I get my calendar.
Yeah, you probably should have a calendar, or you should look out there and see all the posters. Actually, I can't say that, because some of the posters are being moved, and so and you probably can't read backwards, because you went to school in Kentucky. So here's what I will say: this next weekend is our Veterans Day
That's
show.
right.
We've got all the comics that are going to be on that show are not only comedians, but they have all served in the military for the United States at some point. And so we thank them and appreciate their service. We also thank them and appreciate their laughter. And so I told them when I booked them, if you're not funny, we're going to pretend you're back in the military, and we're going to use you for target practice. Just because, that's how sometimes old people are. not all old people, but well, since you don't know my dad, I'm going to blame him.
That works.
Trust me, my dad will never shoot you though because he can't see you.
Well, I'm a big target as long as he can get in with the area code.
My dad is legally blind, and so he never got to serve in the military because evidently he was supposed to see the enemy in order to shoot him. And so they no, you can't do that. So anyway.
That's Lenora from Well Versed. She was here, and laughter is medicine.
Well, see, that's pretty, and she has some real wise wisdom to share with us on our feed. Not like Blake, who just said "yo," which is, from what I understand, "yo" is an old Greek word which means Blake's buying after the show tonight. He's going to buy food for everybody. That's what I think it said, but I don't know Greek. So anyway, so let me again. I want to switch our focus again, and let's talk a little bit about foundational pieces of improv. If somebody came to you and said, "Hey, Dave, I'm thinking about jumping into the improv world. Is there something I need to know when I'm going to the first improv jam or to my first class, or is there something that I should know ahead of time going into that?" What words of advice or what words of information would you share with them in those early days of thinking about or jumping into improv comedy?
The first thing that I would always tell somebody is your job is not to be funny. Too often everyone thinks that, oh, I'll just go up there and be funny. But when you're on an improv team, you're working with people to try to build something. So if you're trying to be funny, you're not trying to help your other friend or your scene partner be funny. You're actually trying to steal from them. So don't try to be funny. Most of improv, in all honesty, is just people recognizing either themselves or something about themselves or somebody they know on stage. And that's where the funny comes, is that human connection. So you don't have to be super creative or super witty. You just have to be able to be in the moment, respond in the moment, and not try to be funny, because the funny is going to happen because God built us to be funny. We're his kids, and he loves to laugh with us. So don't try to be funny is my biggest tip.
Yeah, again, when we have Improv U, one of the first lessons that I teach after the importance of the foundational piece of it's not about you, it's about the audience. Mm-hmm. The next thing I teach is your job is to be a great supporting actor.
Right.
You're not the star of the show. Nobody in an improv team is the star of the show. They are all there to support each other and to raise the stakes for the scene, for everything that's going on, taking it to a higher place. And in the process, funny things just fall all over the stage.
Right.
And that's where people can have a lot of fun. So just be a great supporting actor.
Right.
Yeah.
And you think back to the wrestling comparison, Ric Flair is arguably the greatest wrestler of all time. And it's not because he was the greatest, this, that, or the other thing. In all of his greatness, every match that he had, he was able to make his scene partner, his opponent, look like a credible threat. And they both look brilliant together. So when you have two people, whether it's improv or wrestling, wherever, and they're making each other look brilliant, then they're both going to look brilliant, and it's going to be really enjoyable. And that's the thing. You got to be willing to give. And that's what excites me most, is that I'm not carrying a burden. And this goes to the difference between improv and stand-up, is with stand-up, it's all you. It's you and the mic, and if you're bad, you're bad. But if you go to improv and maybe I'm distracted, maybe the Bears lost again, or I watched the Cubs game or something, and I'm coming in, I'm like, man, I'm just not feeling it tonight. I've got other people on the stage who are with me that can help, who are going to be sacrificially trying to make sure I look brilliant. And then once I get in the flow and I can start helping them, that supportive action helps us build something together.
Well, and that's another piece of advice that came out of your words there. If you're going to be really good at comedy, don't be a Bears fan and don't be a Cubs fan, because that's just depressing. And I mean, if I was forced to become a Bears fan and a Cubs fan, then I probably would be suicidal too. So don't be a Bears fan or a Cubs fan. I'm telling you this for the health of it. I mean, come on, people, survive, stay alive. That's okay. So anyway, I digress or regress or oppress. I'm not sure which one of those I did. But that I guess when it comes to being in an improv group, how important is it for you to have characters and voices that you can throw in and stuff? How important is that in order to do improv comedy?
It's helpful. It's not required. I mean, look at Colin Mockery. His ability to do characters and voices is kind of limited, but he's one of the greatest improvisers in the world because he knows how to support. He knows how to be there in the moment and support his scene partners. It's great if you have the ability to do voices. Rocco, who I played with last night, and I believe it's going to be here again tonight.
Yep.
He's phenomenal at characters, and not just voices, but you could see him change physically into the characters. That's awesome. That is the extra layer. That's the building and the icing on the cake and the second and third tier. But at the base, if you can just support and be there in the moment and respond as a human being in the scene, you're going to be a good improviser because you're helping your partners build something. But the focus isn't on character work or doing voices or being able to bend and do whatever. As long as you're there, that's the biggest thing. The other stuff is extra and can help make you a better improviser. But don't think, oh, I can't do an impression. You don't have to. Just be you. I try to do impressions or accents, and I drop my accent after the second line. And usually my scene partners will trip over all the dropped accents and dropped characters. So yeah, that's how I feel. But I don't know how you teach it in Improv U.
Well, I will say your Australian accent last night was probably the best German accent I think I've heard yet.
Yeah,
that was amazing. If you were going for Australian, I'm not sure.
I was going from North Dakota.
Well, dude, then you were real close because I think that's pretty much who lives in North Dakota is everybody who's been kicked out of Germany. Because the only reason you go to North Dakota is if you've been kicked out of someplace.
Right.
Right. I mean, the criminals from Australia that were sent there in the first place because they were criminals, they got kicked out and sent to North Dakota. That's what I heard anyway. And if you're watching from North Dakota and you're going to send cards and letters and emails, send them to Blake Champlain. I'm just kidding. See, I said Blake. I hope he's still listening because I always mess his name up on purpose. Blake Champlain. Yeah, it's. I should probably learn how to actually say it now. Anyway, Blake Champlain at gmail.com. Just send it there. And if that's not the right guy, send it there anyway. Whoever gets it, I'll be like, I don't know why this people keep saying this stuff. So anyway, let me ask you one last thing then. Sure. Actually, I'm going to say that probably do this in two parts. So it'll be like two last things then, I guess. I'm not very good at math or relationships. I don't know why I brought that up, but maybe I needed to see a counselor. I'm not sure. Anyway, my parting question for you would be this. When it comes to your improv work, what's the best piece of advice somebody gave to you? And what's probably the worst piece of advice that somebody gave to you?
Best piece is Jeff Ash was a teacher that I studied under at Westside Improv in Wheaton. And I think he got it from somebody else, but the advice is bring a brick, not a cathedral, because we're building the scenes one brick at a time. Like, here's what I'm adding, and then my scene partner adds, and then so bring a brick and not a cathedral. The worst piece of advice is sing. And I walked into Showstopper last night, and I was like, I'm going to try to sing. Why am I on the stage? And but I did it. But yeah, singing is not my gift. It's not my spiritual gift.
evidently last night after the show, this is what Blake had to say, because he was on the show with you. I think this is what he said. You're a loser.
Oh, wow.
Either that or he was saying that about me. But I'm gonna just say, knowing Blake, that was about you, not me, because he would never say anything hurtful or harmful to an older person like me. Let's just so anyway.
We could just say you got to be at least this tall to insult me.
Well, then he can't. They can't even be a real insult to you. Then I guess so.
Sorry,
anyway,
Blake.
So yeah, I love the analogy or the idea, the concept of bring a brick, because you're going to build whatever you're going to do on stage. You're going to build it at that moment. So don't, and I guess it goes back to it was almost a trick question that I gave to you about how important voices and characters are. The ability to do them is great if you have that ability,
right?
But it's not necessary because in the moment, if you have the ability to throw in a character or that's great. But ultimately, you're there to be in the moment. Mm-hmm. You're there to take what is given to you from the audience, from the other people on stage, whatever it is, you're there to get that, turn it into something better, and hand it back to the team around you so that ultimately the scene goes to greater places. The audience has a fantastic time. They go home. They say, man, that was the best show ever. And the reason it was the best show ever was it was the audience's show, not ours.
Exactly. So, and Blake, we love you, man. Blake is absolutely hilarious. He's got a good bit of stand-up that he's working on, and he's really fun to play with on Improv. So see him tonight, and you'll see what we meant, but you also see Blake, Rocco, myself. It's going to be fun tonight.
Well, let's be, real careful with how we use our words, because I'm not ready to tell Blake that he's great yet, mostly because as long as I don't tell him that, he'll keep coming and working on stuff, and then he's here and he washes my car and does my laundry, and I don't want to tell him that he has, he can stop doing that now. So
I'm from out of town, so I can lie.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. You go ahead and lie if you want. Blake, listen to Dave, except for the fact that he's a big fat liar. Well, he's not fat. Maybe he's a man of size liar. Don't hurt me, please. Don't hurt. So anyway, that's pretty much the end of this episode of the Pops show. Yeah. The Pops and the Rican. And if you look over, you won't see the Rican either. So because he had family things to do, and evidently my family hates me. I'm just not on this.
Your Gutty's family loves you.
Oh yeah. See, he is a liar. That's all. Whatever. So anyway, again, from the Rican as Pops, I will say to you, keep on watching, keep on laughing, and by all means, download the Gutty's app, join the text community, do all of those things, and let's all have another great time together the next time we get together for another Pops and the Rican show. And then we always say deuces. So it's like deuces, only I don't know how I'm not one of those. I'm not one of the cool kids. So I don't know if it's deuces. Deuces. I don't know. I'm just so okay.
Pops and the Rican.
Pops and the Rican.
Look at this. Pops and the Rican.
The Pops and the Rican.
The Pops and the Rican.
Look at the top of his head. Look at his
Pops and the Rican.